remote chair.
Perfect. Maybe I'll do the welcome remotely, and then we'll introduce us that are here remotely, and then I'll toss it over to you to do your people in person and then go forward with the agenda. Does that work?
Works for me.
Okay, perfect. I'm Senator Karen Housley. I represent
Recording
the
in
state.
progress.
Oh, recording is in progress. And don't yet have a quorum, but John, when there is, you'll announce it. So Senator Karen Housley, again, represents Stillwater, and I will go to Senator Hoffman next.
John Hoffman, Senate District 34, Champlin, Brooklyn Park, Coon Rapids, Dayton, and Rogers.
We'll go to Amanda.
Hi folks, Amanda Dornberger, part of the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources and a technical advisor to the team.
Lisa.
Hi, Lisa Havelka with Explore Minnesota. I am just leaving a meeting that Kate from Winona was at, so she should be joining remotely if she hasn't already. So we're both at a different meeting, but we're tuning in virtually. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Yep, Kate is on. Kate, do you want to go? Oh, maybe she's in the car. Paul?
Hi, everybody. I'm Paul Huguenin, Minnesota Department of Agriculture. Thank you.
And I think that's it for members, right? Because Lauren is presenting. And Andrew, you might as well introduce yourself, and then I'll toss it to you, John.
Okay.
Thank you, Senator Housley. I'm Andrew George. I'm the LCC staff helping administrate the MRPC.
Thanks. Go ahead, John.
Well, I was going to say, we do have one other new introduction as well.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Cartwright. I thought I'd give a quick introduction so you guys know who I am. So I just started at MnDOT on May 4th, so I've only been here about a month. Background, I grew up at in Iowa. I went to Iowa State University, studied landscape architecture and international studies. Eventually went on to Lund University in Sweden and studied sustainable urban design. I'm coming most recently from Colorado, where I worked as a landscape architect there on a variety of different projects, including transportation corridors as well. And then since starting MnDOT, I've been working on familiarizing myself with the Great River Road Corridor Management Plan, Plan Your Trip, as well as like meeting people with like Carol, Marnie, Peter, and the executive committee that have been a big help and resource with a great wealth of knowledge. And then another person we were wanting to introduce very quickly here at MnDOT is Sundara Shevang. She has been a seeds worker, and she actually has been helping out with one of the 10 state initiatives with understanding the signage from the Great River Road to the various interpretive centers. So she has, I have a couple examples I can pass around here, that basically using Google Earth or Google Maps, she's gone through and driven the Great River Road and then written down the directions or confirming them with what we already had on the website, and then we'll be taking the coordinates and getting all of that stuff plugged into GIS and kind of moving it forward from there. But I can pass that around, and that is it. Thank you.
So thank you both. Thank that the great work on the interpretive centers. David, why don't you just walked in, so I'll let you introduce yourself as well.
Hi, David Kelleher, Minnesota Historical Society. I don't know how much you were going down.
I think that's
Stop
good.
there.
I think we have everybody. Do we have Kate on yet? Wait, Marnie. I see Marnie as well.
Hello, are we doing introductions?
Yes.
Sorry about that. I had another meeting right up until this meeting, but this is Marnie. I'm Marnie Karnowski, and I'm with Minnesota Department of Transportation. Good to see everybody.
Thank you, Marnie. And so I'm John Ampson. I'm the vice chair of Senator Housley. She likes to have me chair when she's remote because I can see all your faces more clearly maybe. And I'm also the Metro Region Commissioner for the Great River Road. So I believe we can now approve the agenda and minutes from August 14th, 2025. So I get a motion to approve both?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Bye.
Aye.
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 Motion passed. Thank you. So now it's my pleasure to introduce Lauren McGinty Bennett, who is the Executive Director of Explore Minnesota Tourism, and graduated with my daughter from Monsview High School. So I know Lauren from a long time ago. Congratulations. That's an amazing position that you have. And the reason, again, that we're having her here is that she can talk about Mississippi River Country, which is, Mississippi River Country is under our bylaws as an organization. But we never talk about it. We never think about it. We kind of focus on the narrow band of the Mississippi, but Mississippi River Country deals with the whole state, of every state all the way along the Mississippi. And so we've never had, in my recollection, Carol's been here forever, so she would know if we had. If we'd had a presentation from Mississippi River Country before. But for all of those who don't have the wisdom of Carol's time, we'd like to hear a little bit about that. So thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And apologies for, being a youth and you having to deal with me at some point. I'm sure we were probably monsters. Right?
We're
not going to go there.
But thanks everyone for having me today. Excited to talk about Mississippi River. It's just a core part of, who we are in Minnesota, but also what we do at Explore Minnesota. So we can go to the next slide. Just briefly want to ground everyone in kind of what Explore Minnesota does and our impact. We support the growth of Minnesota's economy through tourism, livability, and workforce attraction, outdoor recreation, film, and statewide brand promotion. That's grown quite a bit in the last few years, but continues to be sort of the natural beauty of the state, and all of that continues to be a core part of who we are at Explore Minnesota. Next slide. So our visitor impact, we actually just got our 2025 numbers and we're working on verifying them. So I don't have the most up to date, but this is a pretty good indicator. And I can tell you that we also went up in 2025, which is fantastic news. But we have a huge economic impact that we kind of bring to the state of Minnesota through our marketing, and that's nearly $25 billion. And of course, we have that state and local taxes piece, $2.4 billion. Hundreds of thousands of jobs, and my favorite stat is that we save every household in Minnesota more than $1,000 per year in taxes. So happy to help. We'd love to get that number up even higher someday, but we're working on it. So I think that is just a good snapshot of where we're at as a tourism economy and kind of what that means for the Mississippi River. So next slide. One of the core ways that we promote anything at Explore Minnesota is on our website, exploreminnesota.com, and of course all of our advertising leads to that. And so we love to be able to talk about Lake Itasca as well as the Mississippi River, and really own and love that we have the start of the river in Minnesota. And one of the very first videos that we ever did as part of our new Star of the North campaign at Explore Minnesota was actually a road trip to Itasca and the start of the Mississippi River with two women who are anglers, and they were going all the way up to Lake of the Woods, and they wanted to stop on the way. So we have multiple itineraries. As you can see, this is a landing page actually on exploreminnesota.com that features all of those opportunities for folks. And it's also part of our scenic byways content area on our website. So as you can see, we use a lot of that editorial components, whether it's video or social media, to promote the river and the byway, as well as just kind of Lake Itasca, which I think is obviously a core part of that experience for a lot of people. Next slide. As you can see here, we have a lot of content as well about the road itself and doing that road trip. So certainly the river is beautiful to photograph, and we like to talk about all the different things you can do along the river, and that kind of goes hand in hand with Great River Road. So we have 8 major stops on our Great River Road Scenic Byway itinerary, but if you end up going to that website, you'll see that we also have several other stops along the way. And then the road trip guide also includes a biking road trip. So, we like to kind of give people options when they are cruising along the river, and that has 9 major stops. And I will say most of our content also starts at Itasca, goes all the way down the river to kind of the end of Minnesota. We do not go all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico because that would be a long bike trip. But we certainly promote that, and I will get into that as we talk a little bit more about Mississippi River Country, of which we are on the board of directors, and there are a handful of states that still actively participate in that. So next slide. As I mentioned, we have the Mississippi River in our campaigns. We talk all about the various things that you can do, whether it's camping, hiking, biking, fishing. We have featured the river on multiple drive campaigns, and the river itself and kind of that road, we help promote the idea that it's one of the best scenic drives in the entire country, and it has won several times that award. So it's kind of one of the best road trips you can take that Route 66. We want to make sure that people know how accessible it is too, and I think that that's a core part of the work that we're doing is you can drive some of it or all of it. You can start at Itasca or you can start in the Twin Cities. You can cruise the Mississippi River, you can bike it, you can hike it. We like to make sure that people understand all the opportunities, which kind of takes me into my next slide. Where we talk about all these different opportunities. One of the most fun shoots that we got to do was in Winona a couple of seasons ago, where we yet again featured the Mississippi River and we went ice climbing. Not I, someone else much more qualified than me went ice climbing on their ice wall down there. But I think one of the best parts about the Mississippi River, especially in Minnesota, is you can do it in all 4 seasons. You do not need to only do it in the summer. So one of the favorite things that I like to promote is the drive along the bluffs in the fall. And then of course there are winter activities you can do, whether it's bird watching or ice climbing, and of course summer is a fantastic time. So those are some things that we feature pretty regularly. And then Explore Minnesota, along with the DNR, has a podcast called Explore Minnesota More. It's me and Commissioner Sturman with the DNR talking about all things exploring Minnesota, the great outdoors. And we did do an episode that featured fishing on the river just outside of Fort Snelling. So really great opportunities for people to kind of learn more about the river and all of the different components that we work on. So next slide. One thing that I think ties together really well with the mission of this commission, as well as Mississippi River Country as a whole, is that we're promoting really all of the river and not just necessarily the drive itself, but stopping along the way and kind of connecting to culture, natural beauty as well. So we really want to make sure that we're tying it to food and festivals and outdoor recreation and getting people kind of outside of their vehicles to explore those areas. We know that this actually plays really well with the various groups that we work with at Mississippi River Country and internationally. When Explore Minnesota goes and does trade shows, we are also working with other groups where we get to talk about the Mississippi River Country. So we promote in the UK, Ireland, Germany, Benelux, so that's Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg, the Nordic countries, and then Japan and South Korea. So we, as just Explore Minnesota by ourselves, are promoting the Great River Road and the Mississippi River, as well as the Great Lakes, which I think are a great tie-in to the Mississippi, but we're also working with the Mississippi River Country to do that as well. So we can go to the next slide where I can talk a little bit more about that group. So similar, I mean, obviously it is a part of this commission and really focusing to promote the 10 Mississippi River states as a region. We recently just did a trip, which I'll talk a little bit about in a second here, to Japan, but we are constantly working through that. I know it's primarily been Japan as the focus, but there have been opportunities to talk in other countries about it as well, including Australia, Canada, India, which we'll talk a little bit about here too. And I think one of the big pieces here is that we know that those international travelers are staying longer, they're spending more money, and they have more time to kind of explore outside of, a weekend traveler. And so one of the the key things here is getting them into Minnesota and kind of moving them down the river, because it is a very special experience and they're very fascinated by it, especially in these key markets identified here. So if we go to the next slide, Minnesota maintains its membership. We've been active members for many, many years. And as of right now, the remaining members are Tennessee, Illinois, Wisconsin, Mississippi, and Louisiana. From my understanding, other states that maybe border the Mississippi River either don't have significant enough funding, don't have kind of an international marketing component to their budget, or they simply don't have enough development along the river. So I think one of my colleagues in, I believe it was Arkansas, had mentioned that it's just they don't necessarily feel like they have as much to offer as some of the other states do in that area right now. So hoping to kind of build that up for the future. But in general, I think this group has sort of maintained a couple of those core states that Mississippi, Louisiana, Minnesota have really been there for a long time, as we should. We are the start and the end of the river. And so I think the goal here is just to support the whole river whenever we can, even if those states aren't members. And then, of course, we are on the board of directors as a state. So really working to kind of increase awareness internationally for the river. Next slide. Like I mentioned, one of the core things here is that Minnesota starts the story. And I think we're very proud of that experience for people, because I'm sure all of you have been to the headwaters and know how transformative that can be. And so we really encourage folks to fly into MSP and start their journey there. And whether they are cruising all the way down to the south or driving, there's a really fantastic experience. And so the next slide really highlights what those top international markets are as we look to 2026. We're halfway through 2026, but it still maintains that we will see some growth opportunities, especially with India. What I will note here is that while I think we're all aware that there are some concerns around international sentiment, unfortunately, which has made tourism to the United States difficult. I know Senator Housley on this call has heard me talk about this before, so it shouldn't be a surprise. But with Canada, we actually just found out that those numbers are slightly increasing. We are still down overall year over year, but we are starting to see a little bit of bounce back there. India really came in hot a couple years ago. They were top one for us as entry points, and the explanation is a little quirky, but they have their visa system basically. So many people got their visas and they last for 8 to 10 years. So travel to the United States has really increased over the last several years from India. We did see a drop this year in general, and I think a lot of that is just some things with the economy and again, that international sentiment, and also currently a little bit more difficult to travel from Asian markets to the US, but they still remain strong. They're coming to visit their families here. They're staying a lot longer, 3+ weeks on average. So lots of great opportunities to get out and see the rest of the country. And then UK and Germany continue to be strong markets for Minnesota overall, and UK does include the Irish market there as well. So we continue to see some strength there. And again, Canada is just ever so slightly inching up. So fingers crossed that they keep doing that in the next couple months. Next slide, please. I just want to give a quick review of the few things that we've done most recently with Mississippi River Country. And Lynn Pilch, I'm not sure if anybody is familiar with her. And
we know.
Great. She's our leader, and she's really organized a lot of really fantastic trips in the last couple months here. So in February, our team did a full trade and travel mission to Japan and met with JTB, which is the largest tour operator in Japan. They're the ones who sell trips to the United States. And then Delta Airlines was there as well. So we have that nonstop trip to Haneda, which is fantastic. And then, of course, we met with some media folks and content creators, because that is how people are learning about travel nowadays. So we wanted to make sure to include them. And then a month later in March, there were several other trade professionals from Tokyo-based tourism organizations who met us in LA, and we continued to meet and discuss that pipeline. So Japanese travel right now is a little bit iffy. The yen is down compared to the dollar, so it's not as strong, and it does make traveling to the United States pretty expensive. But with that nonstop flight for us, I think we're one of the few in the region actually that has that. It makes it a lot easier for people to get here, so it's a good bonus for Minnesota. And then next slide. We also have done some work on the India side, both through Brand USA as well as Mississippi River Country, and we have a consumer marketing campaign going right now, as you can see here, talking about that with Journey Label. It's a high-end Indian tour company, and I will say, from what we've learned from the Indian market, they will stay a really long time, but they're also willing to spend a lot of money. So we love that we can kind of offer a high-end experience throughout our state as well as the other states participating. We've also had some really great Indian journalists. We literally just had someone here last week, and we tried to get him on or earlier this week, I think, and we tried to get him on a boat on the river, and it was raining, and they canceled the boat ride. So he got to see the river, don't worry. But we're really excited about some more media writers coming and kind of doing stories about it. And then, again, continuing to promote that Great River Road in all of our international publications that we do, including at IPW, which is the largest international travel trade show that we participate in. So next slide. It's just a quick intro here to potential partnership opportunities. I know, like we've said, we haven't done a lot together, even though we're kind of joined. So I'd love to kind of talk more about what that looks like. So if we go to the next slide, I would just want to share more about what I think, that could be in the future. You have the corridor and the infrastructure, signage and relationships, doing a lot of really great things with kind of navigating and moving people around the corridor, especially as it relates to all 10 states. And I think that the relationship for this group among all 10 states versus Mississippi River Corridor is a little bit stronger, just given that Mississippi River Country, my apologies, that is a paid membership organization for marketing. So if you don't have international marketing as part of your portfolio, it's a little harder to participate. So I do think there's some good opportunities here for us to work together on that. And then, we certainly, like I said, support and promote the Mississippi River and the Drive and a lot of the work that we do. So I think we have the tools to be able to kind of help with marketing there. And next slide. I know Lisa Havelka is on the commission, and she does a great job representing the work of Explore Minnesota. She is just a stellar person to work with. And I know that we don't have any joint projects in place right now between Explore Minnesota and the commission, but I think today is a great day to have that conversation and kind of see where you're at, what your goals are, and how we can be helpful. And in the next slide, I just kind of quickly highlight just what the opportunities are. I think, again, making our content even more prominent as part of our editorial calendar, or kind of working with you on any promotions you're doing to help elevate them. Driving some more of that international alignment where we can. If that means that we are the go-to partner for international, let's try to work together on what those talking points are for when we're trying to sell with Mississippi River Country. And the fact that Lynn Pilch is a step in the right direction. So.
Yeah, Lynn is actually, Pilch Barnett is our management executive company that manages the
For the
Great River
10-state
Road.
organization.
Okay.
For our.
The 10-state organization. So,
full alignment.
yeah.
Good. And then I think just news amplification, when there's something new to report, happy to kind of help amplify that on our social media, and then marketing and branding as well. And on the very last side is just contact information. So obviously I'm the executive director of Explore Minnesota. Jen Schack is our international manager here. And then you all know Lisa. So I'm sure that she's no stranger and you can contact her anytime, but all of us are here to help promote the river. So I'm happy to take questions or have a conversation about what that looks like.
You have no idea how timely this conversation is, especially if you got to stay for what's coming next, you'd see. But thank you very much. So any questions? I think we can stop sharing and then just see everybody. I can maybe see if people raise their hands. Any questions?
John?
Go ahead.
I do. I'm Ann Lewis, and I am the at-large commissioner. I wondered, you mentioned a podcast. It's your podcast, the department's podcast.
Yes.
about 6 months ago, a colleague of ours who does travel books for the upper mid, for the Great River Road, was on Rick Steves' podcast, talking about stops along the river. And I just wondered if the podcast that you do, if we couldn't have somebody representing us who would go on and talk about interpretive centers and the towns that they represent at some point on the agenda when it would work out.
Yeah.
Maybe during Drive Month, which is September, I do that.
Yeah, I think that sounds great. And we have, it's just talking to John earlier, we have a deputy director of outdoor recreation who runs the Outdoor Recreation Industry Partnership. So that's a group of 4 state agencies that promote the outdoor recreation economy in Minnesota. And he is sort of in charge of our podcast, but he loves any and all guests who want to talk about the great outdoors. So happy to have people on and talk about the drive and what that looks like. I think that would be really fun.
Good. I'm going to underscore that we are about to, we will have a theme that will revolve around the 250th for Drive Month this year, which we're going to have later in the agenda. But that's maybe something, not only the outdoor recreation, but also during Drive Month, the emphasis on the 250 experiences that you can have here in Minnesota on the Great River Road.
That's great.
Okay.
Which the person next to you, David Keller, Historical Society is leading that this year.
Yes, David and I talk a lot.
That's good. We're finding out we have more connections than we know.
The really short version of that is that what we're going to do for Drive the Great River Road Month is build on a project that is up and running now for Minnesota America 250, which is Min 250 road trips. And we have 10 itineraries with all kinds of history nerd things and non-history nerd things. And we're going to add as you look over it, we have a spreadsheet with all the destinations. And as you look over that, there's a lot of Mississippi River stuff on there because it's an integral part of our history. So what we're going to do is repackage some of those for Drive the Great River Road Month and have a Great River Road itinerary. And we'll roll that out. For Drive the Great River Road Month, we typically have had a kickoff at the State Fair. Yep. And I'm trying to remember if you
I've
were
been there, yeah.
for ag.
Yes, I've
Couple
competed
years
in
ago.
the trivia competition. And I've lost, honestly.
You know, we can do something about that. So we're excited about that, but the good news is there's a lot of stuff that's already there, and we're just gonna do a little bit of repackaging, and we'll get that going.
Perfect.
I think the podcast would be great leading up to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Other questions? I mean, I know I have some, but I want to defer to other people if anybody has any.
I guess I had one. So for those 10 trips, 10 itineraries, do you already have all the locations figured out?
Yeah, if you go to the Minnesota Historical Society website, mnhs.org, those 10 itineraries are on there, and it's app-based, but for old people like me, you can, you don't have to have a phone to do that. You can click a couple spots and look at the destinations on a spreadsheet.
Yeah, I am just thinking this off the top of my head, so I don't even know if it's possible, but I was just thinking if that's like going to be a big deal, maybe we could try to see if it's possible to get it on the Plan Your Trip website. So then when people are there, they can just click and here's the path you can go, and it might make it easier for tourists and people looking, and they can kind of compare and contrast them. But I need to look into that to see if that's possible, but just a thought I had.
Thanks. So what I saw here was that there's a lot of untapped synergy that we could connect to. I'm kind of stunned by, I mean, I look at all the stuff you're doing that is about the road and the river, and our site should link to that. So, you know, we're talking about how can we leverage more of what we do in this transition of management of this organization. But it's like, well, we don't have to invent a bunch of new content. There's more content than I knew of that's already there. We just got to bring it in. And everyone will see how important that's going to become in terms of our relationship with the LCC. I don't know if you know, Chris Miller was our executive director for about 17 years. And she did a lot of work. And now we've shifted to the LCC managing everything. And there's a difference between LCC can do and a contracted person can do. And we're trying to figure out how to fill that gap. And it's like you're filling part of the gap already.
And I would imagine other states probably have that as well. So there's, if you're linking out certainly from like the broader commission, I think other states probably have a lot of that content too.
And you have done, the Office of Tourism has typically really helped us out on, as has the Department of Transportation, over many, many campaigns in the past. So thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Yeah, and I know you've referred a German podcaster to me at one point, and I did an interview with a river with a German podcaster. But yeah, if there's other writers coming in who want to know about the river, if we can get, a link, if we can know they're here and they want to talk to us, it'd be great to have to bring in the Great River Road as well. Since you're already tapping them and reaching out to them, that would be great if we could get included in some way in that.
Yeah, that would be great.
And we can talk to Lisa about it more, Lisa, as we go forward. I should also mention to you that October 6th through 9th, our national meeting is in West Memphis, Arkansas. And for the first time in a long time, it's going to be a joint meeting between the Great River Road and the National Scenic Byway Association. So we are going to, all those who can attend, of the 184 National Scenic Byways in America, it's going to be a meeting with all those who can attend. So it's a chance to learn from all the byways in America. And I hope many of Minnesota's byways can make it to this meeting so we can learn from each other. But if you're available, put down October 7th to 9th. The internal meeting is the 6th, but 7th, 8th.
Okay.
Into the 9th will be the 10-state meeting along with all the national scenic byways in the country that we can get. And we can get you a connection to that. Andrew, you can send the link to that. And we hope we can get Lisa there for sure, too. Anybody else have any questions? I see none. Thank you so much for coming, Lauren. I mean, I'm really excited. And I hope you keep in mind all the stuff she said as we have this next conversation. Okay?
Yeah.
We might have you back again.
Happy to come back, absolutely.
Okay. And we can always, like I said, we have Lisa,
Yeah,
who's incredibly helpful. So I'm going to move to the next part of the discussion, which I've semi-teed up already. This idea of, we have to figure out what we're doing in transition here. On March 16th, 2026, the LCC provided the Parkway Commission with a memorandum outlining what it could and could not do for the commission.
Thank you.
And suggested that the commission, think about how it accomplishes those tasks that the LCC cannot do. So the executive committee and Andrew have been working to try to clarify what this means, and that includes Senator Housley, Ann here, and Sally, and Lisa, and Megan at times. And we've been trying to kind of scope out what this transition means. So today is about a discussion that begins this conversation. We're not going to resolve the details today. We want to really introduce you to the issues that I think we're facing. We're looking for a direction. And we have some important decisions to make. Decisions that we have to make, while things we could do while contracting with Odyssey that we can't do with the LCC. And I believe we have the best commission of all the 10 states. I know we do. And we don't want to lose that. We want to keep operating at that phenomenally high level that we have. So can you do the next slide, Andrew? So I'll do this introduction. We'll have Andrew do an overview of what the LCC can and cannot do. Diane, I know, will weigh in as she sees necessary. We'll have a debrief of what the executive committee and marketing group have kind of worked on. And then we'll do a full discussion with the LCC. So I'll turn it over to you, Andrew.
Thank you. John. Yeah, I'm going to start with an overview of the LCC, not just in what the LCC gives to provides as support to the MRPC, but generally what is the LCC. In your packets and online, there was a memo that I wrote earlier this spring for the kind of the MRPC leadership, kind of outlining what is the LCC. There's two kind of LCCs. There's the LCC governing body that oversees our office. It's the LCC is a nonpartisan joint legislative office that is under the oversight of a LCC governing body, and that is made up of members of the House and Senate leadership. The office of the LCC serves as the umbrella organization for nonpartisan joint legislative offices, commissions, and other boards. And there's some bullet points that I've listed here that the LCC does in that capacity, conducting research and providing administrative services to commissions, task forces that are created by the legislature. The LCC provides HR support, fiscal services, and other operational support to the joint legislative offices and commissions. We also house the GIS office, so for redistricting and statewide boundaries for elections, as well as fulfill the statutory requirements of the Office of Economic Status of Women, and in addition to inclusion, accessibility, and language services for the legislature, and then some. There's a hodgepodge of things we do. Really, the main things is these larger support to joint legislative commissions.
And Andrew,
yeah.
you mentioned to me that in the last session, you got more
Yes.
commissions.
And then, yes, every not every year, but generally they're in the past 3-4 years since I've been here, each session, new things get added to the LCC. And that's things that we, have to then support and help with. So yeah. Then I'll go. This slide, these bullet points, the current scope. So what the LCC supports, these bullet points kind of underline what the LCC, myself, Diane, and Megan help do for the MRPC. Really, the main helping with these quarterly meetings, the administration, helping develop the agenda with members, things like that. And then in addition to that, some biweekly, as able, I'll say, posts to the Minnesota MRPC Facebook page, the Great River Road Facebook page, map requests. So we do store and have an inventory of Great River Road maps. So fulfilling those map requests, conducting limited outreach to her interpretive centers and byway partners. It's mostly for map requests. I've noted here for any other type of outreach within, we would need to define that stuff. It would be some clear direction from the commission, fiscal and administrative support, some letters of support for funding opportunities, some limited data and research as directed by the commission, and then development and submissions of proclamations and resolutions. I see Senator Housley's hand.
Oh, Senator Housley.
Oh, thanks. I didn't know if you wanted questions now, but thank you. Andrew, how many commissions, councils, working groups, and task forces does the LCC oversee on average per year? And I don't even know how many people work at the LCC. Like, I don't know if you're doing a commission every single day, and then I'd be like, oh, geez, Andrew, I'm so sorry. But yeah, so.
I think Diane can answer the question.
Yeah, Senator
Okay.
Housley, Chair Housley, we have about 35 commissions underneath the joint offices, the office of the LCC. Some of those aren't active every year, like the Regions Candidate Advisory Council is active every other year. The Legislative Salary Advisory Board is active every other year. So in a year, probably 20 of those are active-ish or so, so if that gives you understanding. The actual office of the LCC, so, and together with all the joint offices, all the joint commissions underneath the LCC. So That's like the Legislative Reference Library, the Office of Revisor. There's about 120 staff, but actually the Office of the LCC that has administrative oversight and fiscal oversight of those offices and supports those commissions I was talking about, that's 20 of us.
20 of you, okay.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, that
Sure.
clarifies it for me, thanks.
Good reference.
Sure.
I'll go to the next slide. Is this you?
Yeah, are we ready to go?
Yep.
Okay. Thanks, Andrew. So Andrew's kind of laid out, what the LCC can and cannot do. We're going to go into this in a lot more detail. And this is not about what Andrew wants to do or not do. This is about what the LCC as a organization can do. I want to be really, really clear about that. So what we need to do now is begin defining this division of duties between the MRPC and the LCC. And there's also an aspect that if we want to do this, for all those we decide or identify that we need, the gaps we need to fill as a commission, how do we pay for those? Or who does those? If Chris Miller used to do some of that, that was under contract. Do we need another contract? Does one of the other, one of the partner agencies or entities need to kind of pick up the slack on that? We need to figure that out. And marketing is just one arena. There's a lot of other arenas. So next slide, Andrew. So I want to kind of look at what each one does. Kind of this is the scope of the topics for the discussion. General responsibilities, partnerships, marketing and promotion, interpretive infrastructure duties, scenic byway obligations. And so as you see on this slide, like the quarterly meetings, we need to define the agenda and the priorities. What do we want to talk about? That's on us. And we've kind of had, Chris has kind of led that in the past. There's a boilerplate part of this, and then I would, or Ann or someone else would have these conversations. Welcome, Carl, by the way. I saw Carl when he was in a leadership role here, also did that. So we need to know that Andrew's going to put on the agenda what we tell him to put on the agenda. If we want something else or something like a big conversation like this on the agenda, that's up to us to define it. Website, we have to develop the original content and respond to inquiries that LCC cannot. And so the LCC is not going to do original content, come up with new things to do or track what else it can do. That's, again, on us to do. They can monitor and respond to inquiries, and they can coordinate with the MRPC on standard requests. But again, the initiative is on our side. News media, press releases, we have to identify what we want to have a press release for. Chris at times kind of led this. She would say, oh, you guys need a press release on that, or contact one of us doing it. She knew it needed to be done. But again, that's not the LCC's mission, is to be a media relations organization. And they can, if they get a news media request, they'll just send it to one of us to deal with, which Chris could sometimes handle those on her own, and then sometimes she would hand it off to one of us. Maps, again, we need to define the content and decide, do we need to print more maps? How many more do we need to print? What's the design? What's the accuracy? Do we add new interpretive centers? All the details of the maps is on us. LSCC can handle the printing and oversee the distribution. Next slide. Letters of support, again, it's up to us to write the letters, decide whether they're needed or not. If a request comes in for a letter of support, we review it, and we can do that in these meetings. And then LCC can submit the letters for us. The national office, I don't, and maybe you know more than I do about this, but I think Chris had a good connection and contact, maybe talk to the national office more about what was going at the national level. But again, that's going to be more on us to keep that contact and keep Andrew and the commission up to date on what's going on and what he needs to be aware of. Again, proclamations and resolutions are fairly easy. We can talk about those and do those, and Andrew can submit them like he did this year. Thanks for getting the governor's proclamation for the National Mississippi River Day. That was awesome. And so, actively develop and deepen partnership with the interpretive centers, the VCBs or CVBs, related byway organizations. Chris did a lot of dogging of those organizations. If she sent out a request and didn't get a request, she went back to them, or she went back to them. Andrew, you just can't do that. You can maybe contact them once and say, you need a maps, and if you don't hear from them, you don't hear from them. But Chris, because she could be more proactive, would keep on these things and nurture those relationships on behalf of the organization. So how do we nurture those relationships with our interpretive centers and our visitors bureaus and our related byway organizations? We may need to be more active in doing that. And the ambassador program is something we've tried to develop to do that nurturing and to tell, at least once a year, or maybe twice if we can, bring the interpretive centers in and CVBs in for, here's who we are, here's what we do, because we have changeover all the time, and we need to make people aware of that change. Andrew can schedule that, and he can set up these sessions and help us run it. You've been through the process before. You can actually help run the meetings on that. Next slide. My down button didn't work. So social media, again, what comes out on social media and Facebook and marketing campaigns is developing original marketing content is on us. So who is going to develop that original marketing content? Do we rely on our individual agency partners to say, hey, I want to market this piece of something, or do we come up with it as a commission? Drive Month, we decide on the theme, and then one of the partners has been great at taking the lead on that theme like others have in the past. And then again, in all these cases, LCC can facilitate, they can post stuff, they can deliver what we give them to where it needs to be delivered to. Next slide. Is that the next slide?
Yes.
Oh, joint promotion efforts, Great River Road. Oh, this is just more detail on basically the same thing, Drive the Great River Road Month. Let's go to the next slide. So there's certain obligations of being a scenic byway. We have to, and Ann knows more about this than I do, so weigh in whenever. We're obligated to protect, enhance, and promote the intrinsic scenic, historical, recreational, cultural, natural, and archaeological qualities that earned us the designation of a National Scenic Byway. And we actually have to do 2 of those because we're an all-American road as well. And we must implement the corridor management plan. So we got to track that corridor management plan. Carol's been very good at doing that in the past. So heads up, we might need you to track that corridor management plan and help us say, hey, it's time to work on the corridor management plan again and do something on it. Again, that's up to us. Next slide, Andrew. There we go. Again, so corridor management plan, and that includes, updating interpreters and providing signage, interpreter centers, wayfinding, plan your trip, plan your project, ambassador program, as well as the roadside storybook, which we've had a number of conversations about, which is about interpreting and promoting and enhancing the visitor experience on the Great River Road. Next slide. I want to leave time for conversation. So what of our budget do we have to fill the gaps that might be identified here? And knowing that part of the budget, can't fill the gaps, how do we increase our budget or leverage our capacity to do the work we need to do that Chris might have otherwise done? Next slide, Andrew. And so I just have a slide here so this is our budget. About 40,400 is fixed costs, and then administration is, administration's 40,400 and fixed costs are 37,600. Next slide, Andrew. And on that, I just started putting this together myself. So we got some, I could use some help on putting this together, but this is kind of how the budget breaks out on the, I have turn up my volume sign because I have my volume muted on my computer, which is blocking the title here. But this shows you kind of the breakdown of the costs. And is there a next slide, Andrew? Don't worry about this. This is just the statutory stuff. But if you want to know that, what the purpose of putting this in here is, here's what we're authorized to do, required to do by statute, and here's what the LCC is authorized and can do by statute. And you've heard much of that already. So is there one more slide?
Yep.
I think that's it.
Yep.
Okay, you can quit sharing that now. Again, the basic point is to get across that how do we fill this gap that on the proactive side of promoting this organization. And I was really excited to hear Lauren's presentation today, because she's got a lot of content out there, I think, that they're already doing that we just need to snatch or leverage in some way. So kind of what thoughts, questions, and anybody on the executive committee who's been participating in this, please weigh in. I did that really fast.
John, I have a question, Carl.
Yeah, Carl.
What of that 38,400 that we're using to contract with Chris, do we have available to do that if we choose to?
I had a hard time hearing you, Carl.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead and try again.
Okay. What of that 38,000 plus that we were using contract with Chris, do we have available to do the same if we choose to try and seek some help?
They're asking about the administrative cost, the personnel, technical service cost.
So what was it? Repeat the question. I couldn't get it
I
completely.
think he's saying what of the $38,000 that was paid to Odyssey, Chris, is available now?
So all of that money right now goes to the LCC.
Just a slight correction.
Oh, no, there's, and then it's divvied up from there.
Yeah. There's some that also go with like the website maintenance, that type of thing, so that.
And 15,000 of that money goes to our annual dues.
This is just the 40, so.
Oh, okay.
The 37.6 is the fixed costs, which are, if you have the packet, but I don't know if he does, the fixed costs are delineated below that. The 40,400 is actually the administration, which is more in the marketing and all of the contract with Odyssey used to be in there, and that's where those things that aren't identified as LCC or obligations that we have as members of other organizations or subscriptions or overhead costs are in the fixed costs, and that's the blue part of the pie chart.
Yeah.
I think you have that sheet in the packet if you want to pull it up on the, that has our budget that
We
says
have
what
it
the.
here, but I don't know if Carl has it.
Yeah, I think that this is really helpful to
Yeah.
delineate what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't know if Andrew, if you can pull it up and share your screen for that budget.
Andrew's looking at for that right now.
Okay.
And thank you. You're the person on the budget, so you should weigh in. I'm not the budget person.
I learned a lot in this process.
But Chris's salary was over and above that 37, or, yeah, that 37.6, right? Because it wasn't worked into that.
Where's my 2026? 40,400.
The actual Chair Housley, so the actual contract with Odyssey was like 37,000, I think.
I always think 38.
38,000 for the monthly retainer. That was for 60 hours. Typically, though, you do some above and beyond work, which was at an additional hourly rate. And I don't have that in front of me, but it was typically like another additional 100 hours. That would be, so it's roughly like something
basis.
around 15,000 added on top of that. So that's an average over a number of years on it. So if that gives you kind of approximate cost on things.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's that sheet.
Yeah.
Carl, if you want to look at it.
Currently, the LCC assesses 30% of Andrew's personnel cost to this commission. Under that category, the professional services and technical services. Yeah. That was in lieu of like the Odyssey agreement. So it's a little less. That's less cost than what the Odyssey agreement was. Because.
So.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do the hand raise thing.
We've been through this before, John.
I know, and I just, God, I'm still a Luddite and proud of it. So if I understand that correctly, if you're looking at professional technical services, Andrew is earmarked to us for 40% of his time. Is that Did I understand? 30%. So technically, that's a, for the amount of work that is done. I mean, Chris Miller, that was the same amount for her, correct?
She was doing 60 hours a day. I mean, 60 hours, 60 hours a month.
I'm a sociologist, not a mathematician, so does that equate 30%?
Of 60 hours, I'll tell you in a second.
Yeah, I'm trying to compare apples to apples here, because Carl's question is.
About 25%.
Okay.
So,
Yeah,
so that'd be like 37%, 38%.
So Chris's was 37%, Andrew's at 30%. So we have a burn rate of about 10%.
Yeah. And
that we need to bill. Okay.
Yeah. And the LCC's never charged an indirect or anything like that to this commission. I mean, we also provide, to this commission fiscal administration, never have, costed against that, So part of my time, which is fine. Just let you know.
Oh.
Andrew, do you want to tell the group, because we had an executive board meeting last week about this, and I thought maybe there would be some legacy funds or something that could help out here. And then Andrew, you talked to Senate Council. Because John, I'm just trying to find the money somewhere. We can fill this gap. But Andrew got some information from Dan Mueller.
Yeah, Senator Housley and members. I think at that executive committee, just trying to identifying the gap, identifying a dollar amount to help fill that gap. We were just brainstorming ideas. I reached out to Senate Council about potential use of legacy funds for some of the work that would help fill this gap. And essentially the answer I got back was twofold. One in that the restrictions on the use of legacy funds would be not this sort of work, kind of the marketing work of the marketing communications work of the MRPC, that outreach role and that coordinator role of helping to promote the scenic byway and the Great River Road. Not quite qualify for legacy funds. That's one part of it, and then the second part of it is legacy funds are competitive grants, annual competitive grants, and it'd be a trickier as well part of if this is an ongoing desired that would essentially be a part of the base budget of the MRPC going forward, and legacy funds are 1-year competitive grants that would be as well hard to administrate over and over again.
Yeah, we could do it for specific things that we came up with, but not for ongoing budget.
But we could do it for specific things, for specific projects like interpretive projects.
Interpretive projects, and then, I don't know,
Like
David and I also chatted briefly as well about.
Yeah, I think going back to a more basic part of legacy amendment funds is the amendment itself, which says these are to be used for, and I'm totally paraphrasing because I can't remember, but for arts education, arts access, and to preserve Minnesota history and cultural heritage. So anything that would be done, just generically, anything that would be done would have to fall within that constitutional requirement. And as Andrew said, the appropriation language always says these are one-time expenditures, and they're not meant to be recurring operational funds, but rather project-based. So to Andrew's point about looking for something that's going to be a dependable, ongoing source of funding to do outreach and promotion and marketing, that's not a great fit for regularity. So, but to John's point about if there's a specific project, interpretive signage about a history, maybe not so much a natural feature, but about a history and,
The storybook project.
The two meet at some point, certainly. an interpretive signage project as a grant might be something that would qualify.
Yeah. Marnie's got her hand up here, so Marnie.
Yeah, thank you. I'm still stuck on that budget. I have one more question. And before we had Andrew assisting us, and maybe this is for Diane, was the LCC taking 30% of that technical contract money for support before we had Andrew?
So.
Or is it the new thing?
Yeah, so Chair Housley and Marnie, remember, to answer your question, the LCC did not, I've been here, I don't know exactly when we started contracting or when we had the MRPC come underneath the LCC. The MRPC actually predates the LCC, but at some point, you guys probably know, it's probably 2004 or something like that, maybe 2000, something like that, 2003, something like that. We used to work with, gosh, now it's gonna, Carlson Travel.
Wagon.
Something,
Carlson
was
Wagon.
kind of an outfit with Carlson Travel, and then the commission, the LCC is required to do RFPs every 5 years, and Carlson was kind of going away and not doing that responsibility anyway. So we issued RFP back in 2008, and MRP, the Odyssey, applied for it. So the whole administrative cost that we were talking about went to the contract maintenance, that retainer with the Odyssey. The LCC has never did any indirect or to any type of anything from that allocation of the budget to the MRPC. Yeah, it's only when Odyssey, Chris decided that she was looking to retire, and Odyssey wasn't interested really in maintaining that, and this group talked about it, that we thought it would be possibly better to work with the LCC with, like, we have some GIS components, some that type of things, than to, and with more grading support of the meetings, that type of thing. But as Andrew said, there's some things that, it's different, where this is a legislative agency, that is providing support now, direct support on such things to this group. Does that answer your question?
It did, thank you.
Yeah, so I think thanks, Marty, because that made something really clear, is that we need someone whose job is to actively promote this organization, as Carlson Wagonlit Travel and then Odyssey as an entity, a promotional entity, did. We've lost that promotional entity that does that kind of work, and without it, we're losing something. And so how do we compensate for that? Is it partnering more with Explore Minnesota Tourism and leveraging what they're doing and try and make it up there? Or do we need money to hire someone in that position so they get up every day, or at least certain hours a day, and want to promote us? Because that's what we're going to lose. Senator Hoffman.
I figured out how to do the hand raise.
I got to reward you for that.
We'll get a prize.
I clicked on everything. So hear me out on this one, John. The chair of the committee that I'm chair of, and also what Housley used to be chair of, right? There's an issue that is always told to us by the so-called experts, the nonpartisan, those people, that they always say your problem is tails. And the tails piece is that ongoing formula, right? But there's a but clause. And David, I don't know if you guys do this in transportation or in History Center, but I do it all the time, which is we were able to stretch out a dollar amount over a 6-year period of time, right? And it avoided the conversations. And just to set one thing aside, discretionary funding is discretionary funding. Every agency, unless there's a match from the feds, this is called discretionary funding. In this case, LCC, all these commissions that you have are all discretionary funding. So at any given time, that discretionary funding could go away, especially given the fact that you don't know who's going to be in charge next year, right? And so I would argue this point, that we proceed to go after some legacy funds and get it proportioned for that 4 or 6 year, whatever the rules will allow within that committee, and we move forward. We did that in the human services world, and I don't see any reason why we wouldn't be able to do it in this world as well. So, does that make sense?
It makes sense to me, but I think David probably is going to chime in here. But I mean, it's worth a try, right? I think we should have a couple of different options out there. Go ahead.
Chair
David.
Housley, I guess I would pipe in here and say the mechanics of how the dollars are available is a separate matter from the purpose for which the dollars would be spent. And we have parameters for legacy dollars that we spend them for the purposes outlined in the Constitution, and then in statute 129D, that say how those dollars can be spent. And it just depends. I think, promoting tourism is not necessarily part of that constitutional purpose of the legacy amendment. But I think it depends. We're talking about hypotheticals here about what we might do, and coming in with some more concrete examples of what a project might look like would help to answer the question of whether it was eligible. And again, Senator Hoffman, the availability of dollars, yep, we've seen extensions. The sound you hear right now is heads exploding in Minnesota management and budget with talking about making dollars available for 6 years because they like to contain it within a biennium, but that it doesn't have to be that way.
I like how you ended that sentence. It doesn't have to be that way.
But the Constitution is the Constitution, so
I hear you on that. No, this is helpful, David. Karen, does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. And I know Carl wants to say something too, but the Senate Council also said the Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund has some flexibility there too, to promote cultural activities and events, if that was something we wanted to look at.
Yeah, so what I've been, Senator Housley, what I've been referring to, there's 4 funds in the legacy amendment. There's clean water, outdoor heritage, parks and trails, which has its own set of rules, and I don't work in that area, so asking DNR primarily what the rules are and practices are in the parks and trails area there are grant programs there, so that may be something to look at. And then the 4th that I've been describing is the Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. And that's the one, I should have clarified that at the outset.
Okay,
but
thanks. Sorry.
That's the fund that we work with that has those constitutional provisions. And, I like to say to preserve Minnesota's histories in the Constitution. That's pretty cool.
Thanks. I'd like to get Carl in here because he's had his hand up for a while. It must be getting tired.
Yeah. I hope you can hear me. Is going back to what we were doing before an option, we were really lucky to find Chris, but, where we find somebody to both do administrative and promotional work. Is that an option, or is LCC going to need some administrative dollars regardless, or, because right now it seems like we're just getting the administrative and none of the promotional support.
So you guys got that?
I think so.
So you're wondering, is there an option of going back to doing a contract,
Contracting it out.
basically?
Yeah,
What he's asking.
that's my question.
Carl, Chair Housley, all the time that I've been with the LCC since 2008, probably have been through 4 or 5 different iterations of the RFP. And we had never with those obtained responses from credible entities that could do marketing beyond Odyssey, I would say, in my opinion. Or sometimes we didn't get any response, just the only one was from Odyssey, that was the only one, so.
And I was wondering if Kate or Lisa want to weigh in. I know Megan, in one of the meetings we had, when we had the people who actually do marketing weigh in, they were talking like $70,000 to get someone, to your point, that would legitimately do marketing for us at a part-time, even a part-time basis.
I'd like to just add that I think that would include administrative stuff, because much of what we've talked about in here, where we've delineated the functions like the social media content, they'd be able to be putting that in and interfacing with like DNR or the history to get, or tourism to get to create that content and do that flow is right now an administrative task under LCC, but it could be very easily lopped over into a marketing RFP, and would fit. It would, somebody who's doing that wouldn't want to lose control of that. It's kind of my guess, because that's the way those things work.
Yeah, look at our time. Again, we're not going to resolve this today. The goal was to make you aware of the conversation, make you aware that there's an issue here, and just start this conversation. But we only meet 4 times a year, so it's not like something we can put on hold indefinitely. So if there's, maybe Amanda, we could, if we wanted to go for some 6-year funding in the parks and trails, because this is our byways under parks and trails. What do byways come under? What, tourism, or would it be considered a trail?
DOT.
I would assume it's
DOT?
Well, city byways came out of the FHWA.
Yep.
Federal Highway Administration. It's their program that we help administer in each state, the DOTs.
Yeah, so it's under DOT, but is it considered as a program in the 4 programs of the legacy funding? Where would it fall if we wanted to talk about promoting a linear trail, linear byway? Could it fall in that category?
Conceivably.
Conceivably. Well, we might have to look at the rules, and maybe you could look into the rules and regulations on that, Amanda, and just see, ask Grant or someone else whether the Great River Road would qualify with some kind of an application for, whether 2-year funding or longer. But again, that's just a stopgap. It's not a permanent solution. Yeah.
Sounds good. I'll send them an email.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Madam Chair, Mr. Chair, another option is to go in the same direction that we have, and that is the funding that comes for the MRPC is general fund dollars, correct?
Yeah, so it comes to appropriation to the LCC and amongst its base. So it's an allocation from the LCC. It's typically done on a historical type of basis on it. If we were to have a decrease of funding, we probably put a percentage prorated against all our different sub-funds. We have fiscal agents, so we have about 60 different accounts, so.
Okay. But it's general fund?
Yes, it's correct, it's general fund.
In some ways has the fewest restrictions of all of what we've been talking about, because Parks and Trails, various DOT-related funds, Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund have a number of restrictions. So one option, if we were going to use our energies to go to the legislature for additional funding, would be to increase what we're doing and sort of have a hybrid, have some of the administrative work that LCC can do. And I understand what was just discussed about that there may not be a contractor out there, but we can try again, but have some of those additional tasks done in the same way that we've been doing the work through an additional general fund appropriation that comes through the MRPC through the LCC.
My input here, and so we could certainly, the LCC could help support that process. The MRPC did seek, the LCC on behalf of the MRPC did seek out additional funds. That was an implementation of some of the corridor management plans with the establishment, I think it was like 25,000 for the establishment of the website. I don't remember how much for helping out with the ambassador program, something with the printing of maps. And then there was also a bit of a general increase to the MRPC then too. I wanted to say like 5,000 or something along those lines on it. I would suggest though, that the MRPC think about, like, its members here, think about like what you're looking for specifically, your goals, what you'd like to do, because the ask is going to be, the members are going to be wanting to know that, the ask on that one. The opportunity, this opportune time that we're going to be at the beginning of a biennium starting next year. So typically our ask comes to the legislature in January when the session starts, but we like to have things kind of ironed out and by fall, early winter, certain time period on it. So, yeah. But I would, again, be very specific on what you're seeking, on what those funds are, you're aiming those funds to do and seeking what those funds would be doing, so.
So, Senator Housley, you'd actually mentioned in the executive committee of, jumping it up to 100,000 instead of maybe 78,000. Do we want to, is that what we're talking about, is we'd want to jump it up by a certain amount and then develop a really good rationale in case for doing so, is what you're saying, in justification for it. And then not risk the fact that someone might look at it and go, why are they getting 78,000? So.
I was just going to say, maybe we figure out what we want to do and then
Put a number on it.
put a number, try to figure out what it would take.
Okay, so I think we.
We could have an ad hoc committee that did that. We don't have to do that.
Well, I think the executive committee should continue this conversation, is what it should be.
Perfect.
But that's kind of our direction, is try to put a number on what we need and then see if we can go forward with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. If I could add something too, I think the executive committee kind of also talked about this, and just with Explore Minnesota Tourism here, the advantageous thing might be to look at what type relationships could be with state agencies to facilitate that. Could some funds be a coalition of efforts be done with a state agency that has some of those resources embedded, which would be cost efficient then too and effective.
That's with partner agencies, leveraging, I think that's good.
Buy-in.
What?
Buy-in.
Yeah, buy-in. Well, Marty's got her hand up.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Chair Housley and Co-Chair Anderson. But since we're talking about general funds and partnering on this, and we've talked about it before, the statute that limits our use of trunk highway funds on this commission, which we all know there's a statute that requires us to support it. So I don't know, while the executive committee is talking things through, maybe you want to think on that one, if that's something that should be looked at, trying to change or not, or if there's a way, for getting general fund money for not only MnDOT, but for other organizations who might need that money to be able to participate more with the MRPC. Just not to be a broken record, but we just have a little pot of general fund money in the office that we use for things that were prohibited from using trunk highway funds on, and this would be one of those. So I just wanted to take that opportunity to put that on your radars.
It's a good reminder.
It's a great remander. Yeah, thank you. I had actually written that down at one point and looked into that statute and read it and tried to.
Yes. So
Okay.
let me know if you want to chat about that.
Okay.
Good point.
Thanks, Marty. Well, let me move us along. We're a little behind schedule, but this was the most important conversation I think that we could have. So, Ann, can we talk more about budget?
Sure. And onward. You all, I believe, have a budget? Do you have in your packets?
Yeah.
Do you want, does that get thrown up at all,
I can do it if you'd like.
Andrew?
Yeah.
The thing I kind of wanted to stress or point out or highlight is that in our chart or in our budget, we have initial budget allocation spent pending what we know is going to come in. We know there's going to be more, and percentage spent. And then there's one column that's remaining unspent. And the reason I wanted to call that to your attention is that we are at a point, we're in the first year Diane, correct me if I'm wrong, we're in the first year of a biennium. So we have carryover capability at this point in time. Now, from an administrative standpoint, this is one of the things that Chris did that was really good, was that she would see, and now I'm looking at it, she would see what she was going to save and push it into the next year for something like printing maps, which is a big ticket item and is a big undertaking too, administratively. So I wanted to point that out to you, that we have, by my calculations, somewhere in the realm of $4,000 or $5,000 that we're going to push, is going to end up being pushed into the next year.
It could be as much as a little under 12,000.
It could be that, even that. Oh,
How much?
that's a little under 12,000, which is better than I could calculate. But when we talk about printing maps, which I don't know if that's on here or not, but it is, at least you've been, I know Andrew's been struggling with that issue, not the printing, but actually the distribution and the demand for the maps. That's a thing that's a category that we don't always focus on when we have a report, when we have a budget report, but at this point in time, or at the end of the first year of the biennium, we should focus on that and realize that when we get to the next year, 2027, we might have additional funds, and that might assist us in doing a project like the maps that only comes at certain times of the year. So I just wanted to highlight that as an aspect of what you're looking at in the budget at this point in time. And otherwise, we're coming to the conclusion, and we'll be starting a new year by the time we have the next meeting. Is there anything you want?
Yeah, I can speak just a little bit to maps. I reached out to Chris. I'll back up a little bit, and where a map discussion might be maybe appropriate here. We did some outreach very late winter. Did not get many responses, and outreach to interpretive centers, tours and partners along at the city and town level, just with the constant contact, that outreach list that we maintain. Did not get many responses, and then did get a large response at the end of the spring, essentially, for a number that would require a full map reprinting. So we don't have that in stock, but this is to say, historically, it looks like, and in chatting with Chris and notes I've gotten from Chris and just conversations in the past few, since during the transition and after she's left, she's been graciously, responding to questions and like that, and that's amazing. But it looks like around an average of every 2 years, there's a big map reorder. We had one in 2025, spring 2025. So we were looking for spring 2027, I think, for that. But to fulfill a large order, we would need to do it sooner. So I think there's just questions about, do we want to do it every 2 years and that's just a fixed thing, or is it more ad hoc, as needed, with demand, when demand increases and decreases? And obviously, I think demand increases in the spring as the winter ends and people start going on the road more and recreating more. But yeah, that's a small note as well on maps that I wanted to share.
Anything else? There isn't anything else.
Anything else, Sam?
We don't have to pass that, do we?
No.
No.
So you good
Yep.
on the budget? Okay, updates on the national board meeting. Senator Housley, do you want to weigh in on that? Do you want me to take that? I think I will take it, because Senator Housley was on the calls for a while, and you were as well. So weigh in as well. Senator Housley.
Yeah, you go ahead and take it. And I'm actually going to log out and log back in from my phone because I have to pack this up. But
Okay.
I'm listening.
Okay, thanks. So one of the things that we noted at the national meeting was we won the best scenic drive in America for the second year in a row. And, you know, that got me thinking, why? How did we win with USA Today? How did we win 2 years in a row? And would we win 3 years in a row, or 4 years in a row? But it told me that, you know, we must be connected to more partners, more interpretive centers, more organizations, more business bureaus, whatever, than any other byway in America. We have a connection with more people who voted for us than any other byway in America. I mean, I wish I could get you know, like if this were, I told Senator Housley, if this were a political campaign, you'd know by county who voted for you. You know, it's like, I want to know by county who voted for us and where they voted from. Because then we could say, here's our power, here's our core, look how, and then we could tap it and use it from a marketing perspective. But Suzanne told me that USA Today probably wouldn't give me the data. So, but I think we have to remember that it does tell us something, right? That we won 2 years in a row. I looked at the 10 winners in the last couple of years, and you know, it's about half of them changed order, but we stayed at number one. And so I think USA they might quit it if we just stay at one all the time.
Oh, no, they won't.
What's the point? But again, it should tell us something. I wish we could learn exactly what it tells us. The fall meeting, again, as I mentioned to Lauren, is October 6th to 8th in West Memphis. You know, we usually get about 60 to 70 participants. We're expecting 200 to 250 with all the byways from around America. And so I'm hoping many of Minnesota's byways come there as well. So we actually get to meet with our fellow state byways and find out what they do and learn from them. The conference is going to be at the Southland Casino Hotel in West Memphis. We'll shuttle to where we have some of the meetings. And we'll have an opening reception at the new Sultana Museum. It's not going to be officially opened yet, so we'll get a sneak peek into the Sultana Museum, which is, I think it's in Mariana. Is it Mariana?
Mariana?
Yeah, but it's you know, the greatest inland navigation disaster in history at the end of the Civil War, a phenomenal tragedy. And so also at the national meeting, we pushed through a couple votes on certain things. And so, and this came out of the marketing committee, so it's going to overlap with the marketing committee. But the marketing committee recommended that the board formally adopt the Great River Road as the public-facing name of our organization. So it's the Mississippi River Parkway Commission right now, and we'll keep that as the official corporate name. But the motion was to operate publicly as the Mississippi River Parkway Commission, doing business as the Great River Road for all public-facing materials. So when people ask us who we are the Great River Road. We have a commission that oversees the Great River Road, but when we market this organization, we don't use Parkway Commission because nobody knows what that means. And so we keep pushing forward the idea of the Great River Road. So that's going to be at the national. They do at the national level. We can talk about it at another meeting, maybe adopting that at the state level if we want to as well. Here's some Senator Housley going on. That was what we got from everybody the vote went through unanimously. It's kind of long overdue. So that went
overdue.
through.
It was my favorite part of that meeting was finally we can just call it the Great River Road and not confuse people.
Yeah, I was talking to one of my fellow cruise boat people who's from Minnesota who was the one who talked me into it. And I mentioned the Parkway Commission. He goes, "What's that?" And I said, "It's the Great River Road." He goes, "Well, why don't you just call it the Great River Road?" She was confused by the commission. She didn't want me to use the word. So we also did something else I think that's long overdue from a marketing perspective. We changed updated the logo use policy to allow a broader set of organizations to use our logo in exchange for, like if there's going to be some race on the river there was something coming up with a college thing and they wanted to use our logo. Nonprofit organization, and normally we'd say no because we're not sponsoring it, we're not behind it, we're not participating in it. But now we can say yes. Under certain conditions, you have to use our logo in the right way. You can't play with it. You can't change colors or design. And if you agree to these provisions that will be evaluated by the executive committee, you can use it. If it's a for-profit business and they want to use it, there's going to be a $100 fee. And so we'll make some money off people who want to use use our logo. And a lot of other organizations do that. Ann suggested that we put a time limit on how long they could do it. And so for this one, we did we need to really, now that we just introduced it at this full board meeting, we couldn't really vote on it because we need people to talk about it and think about it. So, but we approved it provisionally, pending a more detailed review at the October meeting. So Suzanne already had some ask that she wanted to be able to say yes to. So this gave her the okay to say yes. And there's some Mini Cooper drive that's going to occur along the Great River Road that wanted to use a bunch of Mini Cooper users who want to drive the Great River Road, and they want to use the logo. So it's like, yeah, go use it because it promotes us without costing us anything. And if they want to use it to make money, then we get something out of it. So we approved that as well at the meeting. Senator Hoffman, I don't know if you're talking to me or you're muted.
I just said that is so cool, John. I'm all full of joy right here, man. I'm smiling because of everything you're saying. So I just I would say so cool. That's what I was, cool. It's like I held up my Iowa State t-shirt, so there you go.
No, it's long overdue. And if we're trying to figure out how to make money for this organization to support it, why didn't we do that sooner? And if it really takes off and we get a lot of people at $100, let's do 200 and make more. The other thing we did is that we agreed, so there's going to be a National Scenic Byway Day. It's going to be new. So September 22nd, which is during Drive Month, the National Scenic Byway Association is moving to get National Scenic Byway Day at a national level. And so they just needed $75 from the National Commission to get to like 1,000 more Zoom people who could Zoom into it. It's like, we said yes to that, of course. So that basically those are the marketing committee discussions too. But I will say that on the marketing committee, we had Sharon Calcott, who's the chair from Louisiana, her assistant, Suzanne, and myself. That was it on the marketing committee. So we need more marketing committee participation. And they should probably get out an agenda ahead of time and do something to encourage people to come. Yesterday was the Environment, Recreation, and Agriculture Committee meeting, and Ann was on that, along with Sabrina Chandler, the chair, who's the chair of the Upper Mississippi Refuge, and about 18 other refuges, and then someone from Wisconsin, but that was it. So it was like almost no representation on that committee either. If Ann and I wouldn't have been there, it would have been
It was a good discussion. It was a good conversation.
It was a great discussion because something came up that bugged the heck out of me. I talked to a writer who's going to do a story on the Mississippi National River and Recreation Area for the National Parks Conservation Association, the National Advocacy Organization of National Parks, and it's going to be on their national website, the story about the National River here. And she said to me, she's a writer from Duluth, and she said, why is it basically that the people around the Great Lakes care more about the Great Lakes than people on the Mississippi care about the Mississippi? And I was like, what? No way. But she's the second reporter who said that to me. And one of them actually published a story saying that. And I got to see the draft of it, and I complained about it. But no, she said, no, that's right. And then Sabrina Chandler, who is she manages all the refuges above the Ohio River. And I said this to her, and she goes, 100% true. She said, the Mississippi River is a foreign country. And I thought, that's a title of an article or a book. The Mississippi is a foreign country. But that's what she said. And so we have an identity issue. I'm really glad to hear Lauren's talk about how we're trying to promote the river, but it kind of surprised me and shows kind of one of the hurdles we have to think about. And so that was a big piece of the conversation of that committee meeting, was how we think about that. And I'm doing all the committee, a lot of the committee presentations today. We'll get to transportation at the end. And so the Culture and Heritage Committee, we had 7 states represented, which was really, really great. And we talked about the summer showcase, which replaced a semi-annual meeting. And what we wanted was that interpretive centers or CVBs would do like a 3-minute presentation on something new and cool they were doing. And we got over a dozen people who agreed to participate. We had over 40 people attended. Heather from Lake Itasca State Park attended. David gave a presentation on what the Historical Society is doing. Kate from Winona attended. And I hope I get her name pronounced right, Caitlin Cruchette from the Minnesota Marine Art Museum also presented. So again, Minnesota had great representation. And like I said, we had over 40 attendees for this. And so we're looking at doing this will be the new annual meeting. We'll do this every year to bring together those interpretive centers and CVBs. Marty, I see your hands up. You're way up in the left-hand corner of my screen, so I gotta take my head up away from my notes. What question?
Thank you. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I must speak my piece.
Do it.
You know, it's too bad that there is not many people attending some of these committee meetings. And, you know, I've raised this before, but, you know, if we could do some basic things like get calendar appointments, have an agenda, right? Like, because people, you know, wherever we're coming from to be on these committees, we need those things, those basic things. And I'll just share too, I have volunteered with Sabrina, like if you need help or whatever, and oh, she found somebody else to help. So I don't know, it almost feels like the little core group doesn't want other people's, you know, input or help. So I'm just being super brutally honest about that. And Amanda, you've attended some of those meetings too, but like, can we just it's just so helpful to have an actual meeting calendar invite with the link and even an agenda there. And I know people are busy. I know we're all busy, but if we're going to have these meetings and have participation, there's some basic things that I think need to happen. So that's my soapbox on the ERA committee issue.
Yeah, Marnie, I put in the chat, but I realized I was direct chatting to the room in the Capitol, but I was like, I'm signed up for the environmental committee, but I haven't seen any meeting requests. So I didn't even know this meeting happened. So I didn't attend. So I didn't realize that I needed to be checking like a website to see when the meetings were happening. So it's a good reminder to me to look for those things because I didn't know, and I would have been there had I known.
Well, I think that as pilot of the 10-state organization, it's my job to fix that. The Culture and Heritage Committee is successful because we have calendar invites and the date set for the whole year. And I try to get out an agenda ahead of time, or I ask for input ahead of time, and people know it's coming, they know it, and it's on their calendar. So, Sabrina Chandler, who's the head of the refuge, she's lost, I don't know how much of her staff in the Fish and Wildlife Refuge. They've given her even more duties. It's not, I don't look at it as Sabrina's just keeping her head above water, if that. They need other states to stand up and other states to stand up and help more. And so we got to work on that as well. So Marnie, you're spot on. And it just tells me I need to work on this, and I will make a point of getting that message out.
Thank you. Thank you for listening. And I'm not bashing Sabrina, but just some basic stuff probably can really help with that committee.
Yeah.
Thanks, John.
I agree 100%. So I'll work on that. And now, transportation. You couldn't even hit there. I mean, what you're doing already.
So the one thing that I was told to talk about is this short overview that Marnie had sent out to Senator John Hoffman, and it is basically sort of a breakdown of what it would take to rehabilitate and to build out the storyboard. This was given to him at the end of legislation. You guys don't have it. It was just.
Oh, we don't have it.
Sorry. It was given at the end of legislation. So we don't really have an update on it, but if I was to go over just a couple of numbers, I can pass this around. So to build out the remaining storyboard panels, so this would be new panels, that part of it would cost about $1,117,000 or $17,200. If we were to replace the existing Minnesota Great River Road interpretive sign rehabilitation, that would be about $462,000. So total, if you're to do both projects, it would be $1,579,200. And so this goes into a little bit more detail about that. So I can leave this with you guys.
Can we get a
digital
email copy of that?
Yeah.
To Andrew, and he can send it to everyone?
Andrew.
Yeah, yep.
Senator Hoffman, are you familiar with that?
Yep.
Okay.
We got it right around March. I asked Marnie just to give me a breakdown, and she has put everything in a table form. It was too late for me to get anything other than if I could have, if I'd have known somebody on bonding and I could have slid a cash ask her, She just said, "Stop it, John." So there you go. I know she's listening. So.
Well, this is a thing that does fit under the legacy funding, I believe,
Yep.
in David's court. Interpret signage for history.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we can think about how we, do we go for some part of that with legacy funding?
Yeah.
David, what's kind of the reasonable limit for a request from legacy?
I think the largest single grant is $500,000, and that was for a big historic preservation project. So 1.17 million would be
A little big.
a lot, but you could certainly, a project like that, you could break it down into multiple phases.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because like if just let's say you did the rehabilitation, that would be under that 500,000 that you were just talking about. And then maybe the next part, you break it into 2 or 3.
Yeah, so we can build it out over time.
Well, you'd have to have a design, and
Yeah.
then you'd have to have,
Yeah, of course, you'd have to do all that.
materials thing, and then.
Yeah.
So I think that's the next stage of this one is to break it down and then intentionally go write a grant, a legacy funding grant. And if we get the legacy funds, who administers it?
David.
David put his hands up. Or maybe it was like this, not like this. I think can you put up both hands in yellow? So we'd have to talk about that.
Within the legacy fund, if I'm correct. I think it depends on the fund within the legacy fund.
Yeah.
I think, but I'm not for sure because I don't know where arts and cultural heritage comes from. LCCMR, I know DNR can be like the grant that like they help with getting the money out. I think like within Parks and Trails, that part of the legacy budget, I think has like 3 oversight groups that help with the budgeting on that, if I've got it correctly. So I think like State Parks and Trails does part of it. I think Met Council does part of it. And then there's something for Greater Minnesota that does something different. I'm not 100% sure on that. I can double check on that. Hopefully that was a real question. And I'm not just taking us down some weird rabbit trail, but.
No, it's something to explore. Let's explore the different
Yeah.
avenues with that.
Yeah.
So that sounds great.
So I guess, John, one of the things I would just need, what I could do is if I get reelected is take the language that was sent to me and make a bill and break it out according to that piece. I don't know who, I know Marnie had said that the folks possibly at MnDOT would be able to help, or I mean, I need some technical, I think I emailed you back, Marty, just saying I need some technical assistance on this, right? And so I would just need somebody to be able to access, or Karin, same thing.
And if that's the path forward, we could talk about that. It's just our goofy funding situation. Otherwise, yeah, we would be excited to help.
Yeah, no, I got it. It was, your note about your legislative affairs managers just said, we can't propose or draft anything. Well, give me an option, right? That's the question that comes back, and it'll come from Housley or me.
Sure.
And so.
Yeah.
Or both of us if we come back next year.
Yeah.
Great.
All right.
Thanks for weighing in on
I'm
that.
happy to collaborate on writing language, particularly if it's in the legacy area, to just make sure it's
Super, thanks, David.
aligned.
So let's see, I think we got all the updates for the MRPC, except Ann, you wanted to give one up on the drive, the Great River Month planning. Maybe, David, you could give an update on.
Yeah, and I jumped the gun a little bit because I just wanted to make sure that when Lauren was here, that she heard a little bit about what we were planning for Drive the Great River Road Month. As you all know, there's a theme, and we had been talking for a little while of having a history-related theme. And last year, we thought, let's just wait a year and wait for America 250 and do a 250-related theme. So conveniently enough, my colleagues in our marketing area have a larger initiative. They've done a few different, for lack of a better term, scavenger hunt type activities that are mobile app-based over the last couple of years. So this one is called America 250 or Minnesota 250 Road Trips. And maybe Andrew, after the meeting, as a follow-up, you can send out the email address. It's mnhs.org/mn250/road trips, one word. And that has instructions on doing the road trips. Like I said earlier, it's app-based, so you have to download an app called Goose Chase. And under the FAQs, there's a question, can I participate without using the Goose Chase app? So I went right to that one. Give me a list. There's also a map, an interactive map that shows all the stops. So like I said earlier, what we're going to do, and I just met with our marketing communications folks yesterday for the second or third conversation about this, they're going to just pick up on this, probably add a few Mississippi Great River Road related stops that are on the itinerary, and do an 11th itinerary to add to the 10 that are there. That's Great River Road focused. So that's the main activity for this. That's history related and goes to a larger theme. The other whole aspect of this work is doing the promotion for it. And my colleagues in our marketing communications area will do, and thanks, Ann, for
I hope it was helpful.
the list, and we'll work off of this. Those guys have done a creative brief already because they're like that. They are better organized than I am, and they plan ahead more than I do. So they've got a plan for doing some of this work. One of the promotional things that we've done in the past that it's not written in stone is to do a kickoff event. And a number of times we've done a kickoff event at the state fair. It doesn't have to be at the state fair. It could be somewhere along the river, but the state fair is a convenient location. Obviously, there are a lot of Minnesotans and others there. We have had for the past 2 or 3 years, have had the Minnesota Historical Society booth tent in the DNR block. And that's been a really successful location.
Okay.
We had been in the education building, and it's hot in there. The legislature's in there, so yeah, I don't want to speak ill of the education building, but DNR has been really good, and there's a stage in the DNR block right next to the fishing pond. So we've talked about Laura, my colleague in marketing communications, is going to check if there are some days that the stage is available, because they have music on that stage scheduled out. But if we can get a 30-minute block on the DNR stage, then we can do a kickoff and invite. What we did in the past, and the one that sticks in my memory, is the one that Ag sponsored a couple of years ago, where we're in the horticulture building.
Yeah.
And we had the commissioners or agency heads of the agencies represented. Each came to the kickoff. We didn't get a lot of press, but we were able to put images and words about what we were doing on social media. So even if the press wasn't there, we still had the opportunity to promote what we were doing. So.
Well, I was just going to say that I know a certain chair of this organization that is incredible at handing out prizes for sweepstakes or for trivia contests in exactly that venue, and does an amazing job and has a second calling kind of as a game show host. So she might be, if we can work it into her schedule,
Okay.
she's really good at this. And if we get a film, if there's somebody from the Historical Society who can do their own filming, we can get that around to social media in ways that I think is, if we don't even have media turnout, we can get
Okay.
adequate coverage.
And speaking of prizes, for the first 4, there's not going to be a trivia contest here, but I just grabbed some on my way out. But we have some Minnesota 250 pins that are the prize if you complete an itinerary in the road trip. So whoever wants a
You don't have to drive it.
Min 250 pin, if you collect pins, then.
Andrew informs me that we have a lot of swag in storage, or he's got a lot of
That's-
swag in storage.
The Chris sent us a large inventory of, I don't know if it's from when Ag did it, if it's from way earlier than that we have stuff in storage we can inventory. We have inventory, but we can get that, like, if you wanted to include that with these pins, we have Great River Road pins, we have other things, we have stickers,
If we do something at the State Fair or elsewhere, there's a built-in crowd at the DNR stage, and we had negative feedback about the trivia contest earlier. But I think just doing something, for random crowd members to get a prize, people love that. So yeah, let's do something like that.
So I think that is, I'll turn my agenda over. That's you, David, we got you talking, and so,
I'm just gonna, the national meeting, I think if you want, if any of the commissioners want to be in it, want to be attending, and haven't done so already, I think you need to be, am I not right? They have to get it to you, and it has to be
Yeah.
okayed?
So I think, the process for that would be, I'll send out the agenda and all that stuff and the dates and things like that. If we get a list July-ish, sometime mid-July, get a list of any commissioners who would be interested in going, and then that would need to be approved, and then we'll do the kind of an estimate on the costs for that, and then that would need to be approved by the LCC.
That is one thing that Chris did, was give them an idea of what the costs were, or what was available.
Yeah, I think actually I've already done that with John.
Has it gone out?
It was a number of months ago, but way back when. But I can pull it out already.
yeah, and the national office covers me, so
Yeah.
you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, no, it's
And
just
there's-
when you guys were talking about
But
it.
it's a great agenda. It's a phenomenal agenda this time around, and it presents wonderful opportunities. So even if you have VCB people, commissioners in your areas, if you have VCB people, or hopefully maybe even some interpretive centers who are interested, not that they go through this process, but share that agenda, because for people who are working in tourism on byways, it's really a terrific program for them.
When would a deadline of I'll send out after this meeting, but then a deadline of
I don't know what the deadline needs to
There
be.
might be an early bird registration.
There is
deadline that's on the-
it's like August 8th is the deadline for
Yes,
early
so
bird
I think internally, just for members to let
Back up
me
a
know.
couple weeks.
Yeah,
the
they've
commission know
they've got to know pretty soon.
of probably maybe the second weekend in July, perhaps.
I'd say
Yeah,
very soon.
Yeah.
yeah, I'd send out an email to all the,
Yeah.
because people are dropped off, so just
Yep.
get it to everybody.
Push them.
I'm looking forward to, one of the things I've always wanted to do, if I go, and I'm pretty sure I'm gonna go, is the Johnny Cash Boyhood.
I've been there.
It's about an hour away from where we're gonna be, and,
It's fantastic.
yeah.
It's a surprise. It's a
It's
surprise.
wonderful.
It's a surprise. It's
Wonderful.
great.
And there's a great history to it, about the sunken lands
Yep.
and,
Yep, yep.
so other updates, I have just a couple. I've told you in the past about the cutoff wall underneath the St. Anthony Falls that saves St. Anthony Falls above it. I've been working on that for 3 years for the St. Anthony Falls Laboratory at the U. They submitted the the draft report to the provost's office at the university yesterday, and it's going to come back with maybe comments, and then we have to submit it to the legislature by July 1. So that is going to be submitted and done. And then I've been working for the last 2 years. Both these came to head yesterday, so it's been a busy couple of weeks for me. The National Parks Conservation Association completed a recreation economic study of the Mississippi River and what we call the gorge from St. Anthony Falls to the confluence of the Minnesota River at Fort Snelling. And they completed a recreation economic study looking at what would the recreation economic benefits be if you removed Lock and Dam 1 and the lower St. Anthony Falls Lock and Dam in the heart of the Twin Cities. And so I have a little flyer on that. We released this on a boat trip yesterday. And the response, we looked at 4 comparative cities around the country, and then we looked at 3 other cities where there are actual dam removals we did in less detail. But this is backed up by a 70-page rec economic technical study. And so the benefits range, from 300,000 to 1.4 million in river-related visits at these places, 130 to 400 jobs, 400 to 100,000, 900 in local tax revenue, 11 to 34 million in visitor spending, just by having those rivers restored and getting people to them. And so we'd be in the upper range of that, of hundreds of thousands of new users right in the heart of the Twin Cities, and 20 million to 30 million or more in annual visitor spending that could happen here. So I brought a few of these copies with me. I can hand out the ones I have, but this should be going up soon. I can get Andrew a link of where they can get the rest of this. And then I'm going to I get to be on a panel tonight for a new movie called We Are the River by Peter Meyer, who's got a publicity firm, and it's about it's a film on the Metro Mississippi River, and looking at why all the people who are connected to the river and why it matters. So look for that it's going to be on public television, I believe, coming out soon. So any other updates, or do I get to use the gavel? Thank you all. It's a great productive meeting. Thank you. We are adjourned. Do I need a vote to adjourn?
Something.
Oh, John, I was just going to add, sorry, this is Amanda. In terms of the DNR stage, if you want to reach out to me, I can get you in touch with somebody from DNR who is overseeing the state fair stuff. So feel free to send an email to me, please. I'd be happy to help.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, create that relationship.
Thank you.
That's it.
Can I get a motion to adjourn? Do we need a motion to adjourn?
Not for formality, we definitely can, but we don't need to.
No, we don't. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.